Today I'm sharing some faithful Easter crafts that are sure to get you inspired for the Easter season.
Hey, I'm Donna. I'm so happy to have you joining me today. Let's get crafting.
For this project, I am using some canvas sheets that are printable. You can get these on places like Amazon and such. I got mine from burlapfabrics.com. I also created this printable that you can get over on Canva. I will have the link for that down below, but you could create your own. Make sure that you insert your canvas the correct way into your printer. You can see how well it prints out. I have an Epson Eco Tank that loads from the bottom, so I had to put my canvas in upside down. You can see how well it printed out. I needed to stabilize the bottom and the top of the canvas, so I'm going to be using some jumbo craft sticks. Now, I got these jumbo craft sticks from Walmart. I'm just marking them off where I need to cut them down. I wanted to remove those rounded ends. But as I was working here, I discovered that I actually didn't need 2 full-size jumbo craft sticks, but I wanted to show you this step anyways, just to show you how I work through my craft process. Sometimes these things I'm doing for the very first time and they don't always come together as planned. So because I felt like it was just too bulky, what I decided to do was find the center of one jumbo stick. I marked each end, and then I'm going to align my steel ruler. And I'm going to just take my craft knife and I'm going to cut the surface down the center. I'm just cutting through it enough so I can actually take it and split it in half. So now I have 2 pieces. This was the perfect amount that I needed, but if you want to use full jumbo sticks or jumbo craft sticks, by all means feel free. So all I'm going to do here now is just align things up, and I am going to just make sure that it does look right and it does look a lot more pleasing to my eye. I'm running a bead of glue on the back side on the bottom, and then I'm going to press this piece of craft stick into place and allow that glue to set. I'm going to do the same on the top. So you may be wondering why I did that. Well, I wanted it to be nice and stable because I'm adding some branches to the front of this, and I just wanted to make sure everything was going to hang right because I'm going to be turning this into a wall hanging. So I'm just going to start to place some of my branches. I get these out on a nature walk, just on a trail that's near my house. I am allowed to trim them down because they prune these branches, so I knew that I was just helping them out. Anyways, so I get a lot of questions on how to take care of these branches once you get them home from foraging. So I don't typically do a whole lot, but if you are concerned about bugs, then I highly recommend that you put them into a low temp oven for at least 10 minutes, and just please keep an eye on them because you don't want them to burn. We're just heating them up enough to remove any mold spores or kill off any bugs that may live in these branches. So that is all you need to do. So all I'm going to do is just figure out placement for some bits here. I like to create a bit of interest, so I like to have different sizes of branches, and I like to have branches kind of shooting out in different directions. And I just continue to work with this until I get a look that's pleasing to my eye. So you can see I did the top as well, just the same way. There was a few gaps here and there. I felt like it just needed to be filled in. So I'm going to be using some Spanish moss, but feel free to use whatever type of moss you would like. I'm just going to put the moss into place, add a little bit of hot glue and press that in. Just try not to be too heavy-handed with the hot glue, otherwise you will see that. I really like the touch of the moss. I feel it just adds a nice rustic touch. So now I'm going to create my hanger. I'm just going to use some jute twine. I'm going to flip this over and use some glue to glue it on either side. I didn't want too long of a hanger, but of course feel free to create as long of one as you'd like. And the Bible verse that I used, you don't have to use that one. Feel free to find one that you love and create your own printable. You could just use a Word document, but I like to use Canva because it's got some fun little interesting elements that you can add to it. Just get creative and playful with this. But again, I will have the link for the printable that I created listed down in the description box below for you. I absolutely love how this turned out. It's ready to be hung on the wall for the Easter season. I got this beautiful printable from the Graphics Fairy. I'll have the link available for you down in the description below. I added a green box as I'm going to be painting a wood block, and I just wanted to create just a demo of what it's going to look like. I added some font here, and it's the BFC Gleam in Cricut Design Space. You do not need to use the Cricut program. You could just print this out as is and just figure out how you're going to align everything, and you can even do this in Word doc or wherever you like to do your work. But I wanted to use Cricut Design Space because I can print this out and cut it out as well as do some vinyl work. So that's what I chose to do. But you can cut this out by hand. Here, I've just printed that out on cardstock and it looks so beautiful. And now I'm also going to use my Cricut Joy Extra machine, and I'm going to use, again, the machine to cut that out, but you can cut it out by hand. And I'm also going to be using some permanent white matte vinyl, and that is what I'm going to use for the script. But you could always just print it out and create a font that's got a black outline, and it'll create a similar look if you choose to just print this out. I'm using this shelving package that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm just using one piece, but you could use a wood block. I decided to use this because I had it in my stash. I'm using sea spray paint from Decor, and I'm just gonna give this wood shelf, let's call it a wood shelf, and I am going to give it just one coat. I wanted some of the wood grain to show through. I love how that looks, especially for a piece that's a little bit more rustic or vintage looking. I think it's just a nice touch. I am adding some paint to the edges as well, but I decided to leave the backside blank just in case I decided to add something else at a later date. So I just decided to do that. That's just personal preference. All right, so my wood is all nice and dry. I'm just going to figure out my placement for my lamb. I felt like this needed a little bit more, so I decided to just add some frayed burlap distress ink, and I'm just using a makeup sponge, and I'm adding just a little bit to the edge just to create a bit more of a grungy look. I really like that, and I'm figuring out a placement again, and I'm like, you know what, it just needs a little bit more, so I decided to add that ink to the edge of my printable as well. It's probably kind of hard to see it here, but it did add a nice touch. I just felt it helped to bring the whole thing together nicely. So I am going to use matte decoupage glue. Use any type of decoupage glue that you would like. I'm going to give a nice even coat all over the wood. Now I just want you to know that the ink that we used, it is water activated, and since this is both water-based supplies, I am being very careful when I add the glue to the edge. Once it dries, it will protect that ink and it won't smudge off or won't get reactivated. But right now you do have the potential of moving that around, so I'm just being very careful along the edges. I'm being a little bit more generous with the glue in the center because that's where we're going to be placing our image. So I'm putting my image into the glue and pressing it down. I'm using a bone folder to do so, but I didn't realize it at this point that I actually am going to be ending up making a mistake, and I'll explain here. So I should have added a coat of some decoupage over the top. This is an inkjet printed image, so it will get water activated. So again, you want to add a layer and just be careful not to move the ink around too much. But I decided, I'm like, oh, I really like the way that matte finish looks on the printable. So I just took my craft mat, put it down, added a heavy flat surface like a book or something, but I didn't realize at the time that it will end up affecting our next layer. So you can see here, I'm just cutting out my vinyl that I had cut. I like to save my little scraps. I'm just going to weed it out. So I don't know about you, but I find this part so satisfying, pulling it back and just watching this be revealed. I think it's so fun. I also like the sheen on that backing, it's really pretty. So once I have this all weeded, I'm also going to go ahead and cut a piece of some transfer paper, and I'm going to remove the backing off of that and just getting this all prepped to adhere it to our little lamb printable. And again, like I said, I should have added the decoupage glue over top, but I didn't, and you are going to see why here in a moment. Okay, so the glue has dried and I think it looks so pretty. So now I've got my vinyl all ready to go and I'm peeling back that transfer paper, and then it dawned on me. I'm like, wait a second. This is like tape, and tape sticks really well to paper. So I'm like, shoot, I should have added a layer. And you know what? I should have done it before I stuck it down. But again, I wasn't thinking. I just going with the flow. And once I had it down, I'm like, oh, darn it. I should have added a layer. But I'm like, it's already too late. It was it was sticking. I was trying to be very careful. I was hoping that I'm like, oh, maybe it'll still work, but the paper did lift in a few spots, unfortunately, but it actually didn't end up affecting my image too much. It just kind of added to the vintage look of this. So I did get it all into place, and I think it looks really good. You can see one spot there where the paper had lifted, and here is what the image transfer tape looked like, and you can see all the bits of paper, but you know what? I made the best of it. For another added touch, I'm adding these upholstery tacks, and I'm just gonna cut off the nail part because it goes all the way through the back. But if you're using a wood block, you do not need to do that. You can just hammer them in. So I just snipped that off, and then I'm going to use some hot glue, and that's what I'm going to use to cover up each hole, because you got to remember these were shelves and it was made for string to go through. So I thought this would be a really nice decorative touch to hide that. But you could use like flat black pearls or something, just get creative. But I have to say, I think this is absolutely beautiful. Even though there was a few mistakes along the way, I still love how this turned out. So I got these bird images from the Vintage Fairy. I encourage you go directly to the website to get these images. That way here, the creator will get full credit where credit is due. So all I did was upload all these images, and I'm just going to create just a basic blue box just so you could see the next step that I'm doing. I needed to create an offset, and I wanted to show you that there is just the manual way, or in Cricut Design Space, you can create this like a sticker and use the sticker making option, and you can see the outline. I used thin. I really like that look, but you can see the different options here. This is a subscription feature, but you can use the offset feature as well. But you can see how you've got the offset against the blue. You can see that really well, but we're actually not using that blue background. So I did that to all the birds, and I ended up having to use the printable vinyl setting. I did do this on some cardstock. I also created some tags using some Bible verses that I had found on Creative Fabrica. I turned these into tags by using the tag function in the tag image in Cricut Design Space. It's in the shape section. And all I did was just adjust the size accordingly. I also sliced out a little circle to cut out a little hole in our tag. And then I just pieced this all together. I copied and pasted the tag several times. This is kind of like a basic a tutorial here, but you can see to slice, you just highlight the whole feature once you got everything in place and centered, and then you highlight the whole thing again. At the bottom, you click on the slice button, and lo and behold, you'll have a little cutout that will be your little tag hole. It works really, really well. I'm doing this all in Cricut Design Space, but you do not have to do this. Again, you can find this stuff like this on Canva. You just need to go to, again, Creative Fabrica to get these. And I just did a search. These are all personal use items only, so just keep that in mind, but you can create your own. Just go into a Word document and type up your own Bible verses. Just get creative, and then you do not have to use a Cricut machine either for this. You could just cut this all out by hand. There's just lots of options. I understand that not everybody has a machine to use, but I will say it definitely is handy having one. I used to do everything by hand before I had a Cricut machine. So just to let you know, I did change the background color of my tags all to white because I'm printing these all out on my own colored cardstock. So here I use like an off-white color. It's a kind of a creamy color, and I'm using my Cricut machine. I am now going to be using this wood bead that I got in the fall from Dollar Tree. Now, I'm sure Dollar Tree has got some pretty spring ones now, but I'm trying to use my stash. I wanted to get rid of the orange. It just wasn't going to work for my look. So I just got rid of all those orange beads, saved all the natural wood beads, and I will be restringing these all. I know you can get some pre-strung bead garlands from Dollar Tree. My store hasn't had those, so again, except the ones with color, of course, but that's okay. I'm just like trying to use what I have here, so I'm going to string them back on and just make the best of this project. You do not necessarily have to do this step, but my bead strand wasn't long enough, so I'm taking the two and I'm going to tie the jute string together. And then I know that my bead garland will be long enough for my project. So I just did a basic knot, and I did end up adding a touch of glue just to help hold that knot together. So here are all my printed out birds. Again, just used my Cricut machine to cut those out, but you can cut them out by hand as well once they're all printed out. And here's all my tags. I'm going to be using some mini clothespins to use as little hangers for my birds. But to hang them off of the bead garland, I am going to just fold a strand of some jute twine in half, like you see me doing here. And then I'm going to just trim that down. You can have these in multiple lengths. And I'm going to be tying a knot on the one end and gluing that into the clothespin. But to start off first, you want to take your loop, put it on the back side of your garland strand, and then pull the tails through that loop so it wraps around the garland jute twine that you saw me doing there. So then you can just pull the two strands through the loop of the tag and tie that off, or you can tie a knot and then glue that twine into the clothespin, which I will show you here in a moment. But you can see how easy that is. And then it's adjustable because it'll slide on that twine, and you can also take it off as needed and move it around. So here I'm just figuring out where I want all my images. Like I want I wanted to separate all the images so I could balance it between both sides of that center knot that I had. I hope that makes sense. Here I'm going to show you how I do the strand for the bird. So again, folded my string in half, created a loop, put the loop behind the string, pulled the two strands through the loop, and now I'm going to be creating a knot on the one end, trimming off any excess because I need that little knot to fit inside my clothespin. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue inside that on the top part of our clothespin. That's where you're going to be pinching it. and I'm going to squeeze that together to make sure the glue holds, and then you can see how cute that is, and it's so easy to add your little bird. And again, if you need to move these around, you can. But I really like the way it looks, so I added all of my elements, and then you can go ahead and hang this up. You can see how beautiful it looks on the mantle. I did make a little bit of a measuring mistake in the center, but like I said, you can move these around quite easily enough. So I do recommend doing this while it's hanging up if you can. I love how each and every one of these turned out. I have more for you to check out in this video right here. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.